Hello and welcome. It's Tuesday, the 11th of March. You're tuned in to our 10 a.m. newscast coming to you from ARIRANG's news centre in Seoul. Let's take a look at what's making the headlines. 3 days on and still no clues as to what happened. Investigators widen the search area in a bid to locate the missing Malaysia Airlines plane. Authorities also say 2 passengers travelling with stolen passports were not Asian-looking. Following a series of massive security breaches by financial institutions in Korea, the government unveils measures to protect personal information and raises the penalties for personal data misuse. Plus, the Libyan Navy seizes a North Korean-flagged tanker after it had loaded $30 million worth of crude oil at a rebel-held port. The ship is now being escorted to western Libya. Our top story this morning. More than 72 hours have passed, but still no sign of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. As the mystery deepens, authorities are widening the search area in an effort to locate the missing jetliner. One of the investigators says the 2 passengers travelling with stolen passports on the flight were not Asian-looking men. Paulie starts us off.
Malaysian authorities said Monday they had identified one of the 2 suspicious passengers of the missing airliner. Interpol earlier confirmed at least 2 passengers on board had been traveling on fake passports from Australia and Italy. Police Inspector Khalid Abu Bakar reportedly confirmed that the suspect is not a Malaysian, but could not divulge which country he was from yet. Meanwhile, China has lashed out at Malaysia's national carrier and aviation officials for the way it's handled the investigation of the Boeing 777 that disappeared over the East China Sea. Chinese state media has criticized Malaysian authorities for not contacting the families of the victims sooner and for the apparent lack of security checks. Beijing's foreign ministry has also urged Malaysia to step up its search efforts for the missing airliner and the 239 passengers on board.
This was a Malaysia Airlines aircraft, so it should be the Malaysian authorities that are mainly responsible for the search and rescue efforts. The Chinese government will also do all it can to participate in search and rescue efforts as well.
Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 took off from Kuala Lumpur on Saturday, but vanished from radar en route to Beijing. There have been sightings of oil slicks and reported pieces of debris, but international efforts have failed to find the wreckage even after 3 days of scouring the sea. As of Monday, 40 ships and 34 planes from 9 countries had joined the operations, with the search now expanded to the Malacca Strait and on land in Malaysia. Paul Yi, ARIRANG News.
Following a series of security breaches by financial institutions here in Korea, the government has unveiled a set of preventive measures that include tougher punitive actions and improvements in the data management system. Na Hyung-kyung reports.
From the latter half of this year, financial institutions will only be able to ask for customers' resident registration numbers at the initial application stage. After that, people will not be asked to provide their registration numbers, but instead be asked to verify their identity through other safer means. The registration numbers have been at the center of a recent series of high-level personal information security breaches, and toughening their use is a key part of a package unveiled by the government on Monday to fight widespread leaks of personal data. Financial institutions will also not be allowed to keep collected information for more than 5 years after the final transaction.
Apart from the information that's absolutely necessary, all other data that the financial institution either has or has provided to a third party will be destroyed. The police and the prosecution will jointly and indefinitely crack down on breaches.
The government has also tightened the penalty system. If a company is found to have used illegally obtained personal information to make profits, it will be fined 3% of the total sales made through using the data. Also, a fine of up to 5 billion won, or roughly $4.7 million will be levied on firms that leak customer information. Officials reaffirmed that customers will only have to give just their basic information, such as their registration number and date of birth, for receiving financial services. People will also be given the option to retract on an agreement to provide personal data and also block telemarketing calls from financial institutions. But industry experts are already questioning whether these measures will be effective, saying most of them have either been practiced or are merely a reiteration of similar policies from the past. 나현경, ARIRANG News.
Korea, the world's most wired nation, is looking to shore up its information, communication and technology infrastructure this year. The ministry in charge says it plans to funnel over $4.5 billion into the sector. Ji Myung-gil reports on where the money will be spent.
Korea's Science Ministry says it will inject 4.9 trillion won, or some $4.6 billion into the country's information technology sector this year in order to fuel economic growth and enhance the country's overall competitiveness. The Ministry of Science, ICT and Future Planning says the money will be used to fund numerous projects in central government agencies that were initiated by regional governments. $1 billion will be used to strengthen IT research, while another billion will be used to upgrade the nation's information and communications technology infrastructure. Key projects to receive large amounts of funding include the country's digital infrastructure and initiatives to increase the country's presence in cloud computing, mobile services, and next-generation mobile wireless technology. The Trade Ministry says ICT exports have increased 8.4% this year from last to $12.8 billion, fueled by an increase in exports of mobile phones and semiconductors. That gave Korea an ICT trade surplus of $6.6 billion in February, which is a 1.6% increase from the same month last year. Global technology research group Gartner says the world's ICT market will grow 3.6% this year, fueled by a recovery in the smartphone and semiconductor markets. Ji Myung-gil, ARIRANG News.
Phase 2 of a massive medical strike has begun after tens of thousands of doctors walked off the job on Monday. The doctors are protesting against the government's plans to reform the medical sector. For the next week and a half or so, doctors taking part in the strike will cut their work hours and limit time spent with patients. Kwon Soa has the details.
The medical strike has just begun. After Monday's walkout, the Korean Medical Association is progressing to the next round of its strike as planned. While those taking part in Monday's strike refused to provide any medical services, starting Tuesday through March 23rd, doctors will turn to a work-to-rule action. This means they won't work more than 40 hours a week, which is around 10 hours fewer than usual, and will treat patients for no longer than 15 minutes. A full 6-day strike is then planned to begin on March 24th, which could also include the closing of emergency rooms and intensive care centers. If residents and interns participate in the 2-week strike too, there are concerns this will affect the public, considering they work up to 100 hours a week. Although some patients were inconvenienced by Monday's walkout, it didn't create as much chaos as initially feared. The government has reiterated it will react strongly to illegal actions that put the health of the public at risk. The Health Ministry estimates around 3 out of every 10 doctors at hospitals and local clinics took part in Monday's walkout, while the Medical Association puts the figure at nearly 50%. As big as that discrepancy are the stark differences in opinion over the government's health reform plans, which prompted the KMA strike. KMA doctors are against government plans to introduce a telemedicine system that would allow for patients in remote areas to be diagnosed and treated via webcam, smartphone, or even email. The Medical Association says this will impair the quality of medical services. The KMA is also up in arms over the government's move to run for-profit subsidiaries. Doctors are also worried the reforms could eventually lead to privatization of the medical sector. The Medical Association says it expects even more doctors to take part in the second round of strikes. Kwon Soa, ARIRANG News.
Prosecutors raided the offices of the National Intelligence Service late Monday as part of their probe into allegations the spy agency fabricated evidence in an espionage case. The case, which began last year, revolves around a former Seoul Metropolitan Government official accused of spying for North Korea. According to the prosecution, the Chinese government documents secured by the NIS, which showed the official had travelled to North Korea, may have been faked. At a meeting with her senior presidential staff on Monday, President Park said the prosecutor's investigation should leave no suspicions and the spy agency must fully cooperate with the investigation. Opposition leaders say the prosecutor's probe cannot be trusted as they have a history of collaborating with the NIS. They are calling for a special counsel investigation into the case. Reform of the state spy agency has been a hot political issue ever since it was swept up in allegations it meddled in the 2012 presidential election. Staying with domestic politics, and the ruling Saenuri Party and the main opposition Democratic Party are gearing up for the upcoming June 4th local elections. The Saenuri Party has confirmed it will begin reviewing candidates for their primary elections starting next Sunday. The ruling party said it expects the process to be wrapped up sometime around late April. On the other side of the political spectrum, the Democratic Party and Ahn Cheol-soo's new Political Vision Party have finished appointing the people that will make up the 4 subcommittees in charge of establishing their new coalition party.
Get connected to Korea and the world. Join us every weekday for the latest developments out of Korea, Asia, and beyond. On air, on your mobile, and online, we lead the way every day. ARIRANG News.
To try and resolve the crisis in Ukraine, the European Union also offers $15 billion. Libyan government forces have intercepted a North Korea-flagged tanker after it had loaded $30 million worth of crude oil at a rebel-held port. A Libyan lawmaker says the vessel was seized at the Al Sidra port and has not been damaged. Rebels at the port have been trying to sell oil without the permission of the Tripoli government. Mohammed El Fariri, a spokesman for Libya's state-owned National Oil Corporation, says the ship was now being escorted to western Libya. Libya's parliament has ordered a special force to be deployed to, quote, liberate all rebel-held oil ports. Over now to the elections in North Korea. The communist state held its first parliamentary elections under the current leader Kim Jong-un, which pundits say stand to further consolidate his power base. The result? Well, you probably won't be surprised to hear that 100% of the vote went to Kim. Connie Kim has the details.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has been elected to a new rubber stamp legislature in the nation's first parliamentary elections since he assumed power. The North's official Korean News Central Agency said Monday that Kim won with 100% of the vote.
All voters in the number 111 Mount Baekdu constituency voted for Kim Jong-un in the 13th Supreme People's Assembly.
The Supreme People's Assembly is North Korea's utmost sovereign organization, the equivalent to South Korea's National Assembly. The nationwide elections are expected to consolidate Kim's power base after the recent purge of close aides, including Jang Song-taek, was executed last year. Analysts say the elections will likely promote officials depending on their loyalty to the young leader. There is also a high possibility that Kim Jong-un's younger sister Kim Yo-jong will hold a key position in the Supreme People's Assembly. She was listed along with senior officials of the Central Committee of the ruling Workers' Party.
Korean Central Television called Kim Yo-jong after Hwang Byung-seo, the vice department director of the Workers' Party. This means that Kim Yo-jong could hold a similar position. We saw when her name was announced.
North Korean experts speculate that Kim Yo-jong will replace her aunt Kim Kyung-hee in taking care of Kim Jong-un's slush funds. The turnover rate of the new Supreme People's Assembly, which has a total of 689 deputies, is expected to be 40%. Aside from Kim's appointment as deputy, the rest of the results have not been announced. Connie Kim, ARIRANG News.
A high-level Japanese official will embark on a two-day trip to Korea beginning Wednesday amid frayed ties between the two sides due to a number of historical and territorial issues. Japan's foreign ministry says Vice Foreign Minister Akitaka Saiki will meet with his Korean counterpart Jo Tae-yong and other officials for talks on bilateral relations and issues related to North Korea. Much attention is on the result of the talks since Korean Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se's demand at a UN session in Geneva last week that Japan admit to its sexual enslavement of Korean women during the Second World War and make efforts for a resolution of the issue. The talks will be the first high-level meeting between the two nations since Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's trip last December to a shrine that honors Japan's war dead and several Class A war criminals. Now, some very good news as Pope Francis is coming to South Korea in the summer. The presidential office of Cheong Wa Dae has confirmed that the Pope will arrive in Korea on August 14th on the invitation of both Seoul and the Korean Catholic Church. During his 5-day trip, Pope Francis will attend Asian Youth Day events in the central city of Daejeon, beatify 124 Koreans, and will also pay a courtesy call to President Park Geun-hye. The pontiff, who expressed his adoration for Korea when granting the country's third cardinal last month, is expected to call for love and peace on the Korean peninsula and in Northeast Asia. He'll be the first pope to visit Korea since Pope John Paul II came in October 1989.
Good day, I'm Eunice Kim, and here are your headlines from around the world. NATO says it will send reconnaissance planes to help monitor the crisis in Ukraine. This as Russia tightens its control of the Crimea ahead of the scheduled referendum vote on Sunday. A NATO spokesman said the all-clear was given on Monday, adding the planes will only take the flight over alliance territory in neighboring Poland and Romania. This as the World Bank said it will increase its support to Ukraine to up to $3 billion this year if the government implements economic reforms. Meanwhile, more fist-clenching in the Crimea, where armed men, likely Russian troops and local militia, stormed a military hospital and took control. There are also reports of gunfire fired in the air at a naval post in the Crimea as a group of 10 unidentified men moved into the post to demand 10 trucks from the Ukrainian staff there. Today marks the third anniversary of the March 11th earthquake, tsunami, and nuclear disaster in Japan. And ahead of it, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said he would resume operations of Japan's nuclear reactors. During a nationally televised address Monday, Abe said he understood the lingering concerns, but assured the public that the restarted reactors would have passed extremely strict safety tests. The nuclear shutdown had pushed Japan to import expensive fossil fuel, causing the economy to post deep trade deficits over the last 18 months. Meanwhile, thousands gathered in front of Parliament in a protest rally, including former Japanese Prime Minister Naoto Kan. On Sunday, residents in Iwaki City near the Fukushima nuclear plant remembered the tens of thousands who died in that tsunami that was triggered by the 9.0 magnitude earthquake. Against a backdrop of Iranian-supplied missiles seized by Israeli Navy ships last week, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Monday said the world was deluding itself on Iran's intention to pursue nuclear weapons. Netanyahu has been an outspoken critic of the deal Iran and 6 world powers had struck for limited relief from sanctions in exchange for Tehran curbing some of its sensitive nuclear activities. On display were M302 surface-to-surface rockets that Israel has said were bound for militants in Gaza, which could be used to strike Israel. Netanyahu urged the world to wake up from its self-deception and stop Iran from developing nuclear weapons. And over in Austin, Texas, USA, ex-NSA contractor turned whistleblower Edward Snowden made a rare public appearance via a web link-up at the South by Southwest Interactive Festival. Speaking from Russia, Snowden urged the audience of tech enthusiasts to help fix the U.S. government's surveillance of its citizens. It marks the first time Snowden has directly addressed a group of Americans since fleeing the country last June. And during a Q&A session, Snowden also said he would do it all over again if he had to, adding that the U.S. Constitution was, quote, being violated on a massive scale.
And a good Tuesday morning to you all as we kick things off in figure skating, where Kim Yeon-a's agency, All That Sports, announced on Monday that she'll be holding her farewell ice show in May. With the ice show to take place from May 4th to the 6th, Kim Yeon-a will be holding her farewell ice show in Seoul to mark her retirement from the sport. While dates for the ticket sales haven't been confirmed just yet, fans can expect the tickets to sell out in minutes. While it won't be her only ice show after her retirement, it'll be her most anticipated ice show of her career, as fans hope to see her golden performance in May. And shifting over to baseball, where monster pitcher Ryu Hyun-jin of the LA Dodgers is currently preparing for his second season in the majors. And on Monday, it was confirmed that Ryu Hyun-jin will be the #2 starter in the two-game series in Australia to kick off the new season. With the LA Dodgers starting their season in Australia against the Arizona Diamondbacks from March 22nd to the 23rd, manager Don Mattingly confirmed that the South Korean southpaw will be pitching as the #2 starter. With Clayton Kershaw taking the mound as the opening day starter and Zach Greinke out with an injury, Ryu Hyun-jin was chosen over the other starting pitchers in the roster. Ryu, who's usually the #3 starter in the Dodgers starting rotation, finished his rookie season at 14-8 with an ERA of 3.00. And moving over to the KBL, where the 2014 KBL Playoff Media Day took place on Monday, with the 6 head coaches headed over to the playoffs. With the Changwon LG Sakers and the Ulsan Mobis Phoebus going into the semifinals with a bye after finishing the season in first and second place, the head coaches for the two teams hope to see the other 4 teams beat each other up before advancing to the next round. But the SK Knights, the Goyang Orions, and the KT Sonic Boom, plus the Incheon Itilan Elephants, hope to finish off their series quickly to save as much energy as possible going into the semifinals. Meanwhile, Ulsan hopes to defend their title as the favorites going into the playoffs. Moving over to football, where the uniforms for the 4 nations in Group H of the Brazil World Cup have now been revealed, and turns out 3 of the 4 teams will be wearing red. With Korea, Russia, and Belgium all wearing red as their main uniforms, it'll be a fight to see who will get to wear red uniforms when they face off against each other. As for Korea, the red uniforms has long been the symbol of the team and has a better record when wearing the red uniform, as they won 3 of their 5 World Cup wins when wearing that red uniform. But experts predict that Korea will have to wear their white away uniform against Russia and will be wearing their signature red uniform against Belgium and Algeria. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
We have a beautiful day on tap today. Temperatures are warming up nicely, with highs are aiming for teens today, low teens in the upper parts of the peninsula and mid-teens down south. And thanks to the high pressure front from the south, the whole country could enjoy blue and sunny skies all day long. So it should be a perfect day to take advantage of nice spring weather condition. But it's been a week since the dry weather watch has been issued around the country, and dry weather warning is still in place in the southeastern part of the country. But thankfully, we do have a relief on the way. There is a nationwide rain in store tomorrow afternoon, so we can definitely look forward to that. But also, temperatures will drop a couple of degrees. Do keep that in mind, and here are the readings for today. The afternoon high in Seoul will rise to 12 this afternoon, and Daegu and Gwangju should top out at 17 and 16 respectively, while Busan should get up to 14 later in the day. Now, for other regions, down on Jeju will climb up to 14, and Daejeon will rise to 15, while the top temperature on Mount Keungang will be at 5 this afternoon. Well, that's all for now, and hope you have a wonderful day.
And that's all for now. Have a fabulous rest of the day. We'll be back again for our next newscast coming up at noon Korea time.